you. I'm so happy to see your lovely faces. So glad that you are here, a part of Union Church. If it is your first time with us, I just want to say thank you so much for making us part of your spiritual journey. We know sometimes when you're visiting a new church or any new space, right? It feels a little awkward and uncomfortable sometimes. So let me tell you a little bit more about who we are so you know who you're visiting. We are a multicultural, multi-generational, inclusive community that pursues God's vision of flourishing together. And our mission is to actually grow diverse communities and develop Christ followers who seek the common good. That's who we are as a community. And so you are more than welcome here. However you are, whoever you are, however you identify, we are so very happy that you are here with us. And we would love to help you be a part of our community and connect some more. If it's your first time with us, we'd love to help you connect and grow. If you look at the seat backs right in front of you, there are some QR codes. You can scan them using your phone. There should be one right behind me as well. You can also visit our church website. And you can also follow us, of course, on Instagram. We do live stream to YouTube, and we do have a Facebook page. You can learn a little bit more about all the things that we're doing. Also, don't miss out on wait, let me pause real quick here. This is some big news. I don't know if y'all know this, but last June, I know we officially launched as a church in November, but last June was when we officially became an independent community in June of 2024. And guess what? We're in June of 2025. We made it! 1 year. Listen, in a lot of cultures around the world, the first year of anything, the first year of a baby's life, the first year of a business, the first year of anything is a really big deal because it is the most dangerous / treacherous part of the development of anything, right? A lot can crumble, a lot can happen. But I gotta tell you, we made it through, and it's all because of the beautiful unit that we are. You make up the fabric of our community. Without you, a church, Union Church, we ain't nothing. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for showing up how you show up. So let's celebrate our Universary next week, yeah? Yes. Next week, we're going to have some pretty amazing things happening here at Concordia. So you can come early, stay late, do both, whatever you'd like. We're going to be having an ice cream truck right after service, some fun and some games. So make sure you join us. Invite any friends that you'd like to invite. We're going to be celebrating this awesome milestone for our community. And like I said, without people like you, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. Because of your generous giving, we're able to help out partners in ministry. We're able to help out our neighbors and our very own community members through hardships. So thank you so much for those of you who are already giving. If you would like to join in the giving, we have a couple of methods that you can do that. Your financial partnership is so very important because it helps us move forward with this vision that God has planted in our hearts that we are pursuing as a community, all right? So if you'd like to be a part of giving, you can also use the QR codes in the seat back in front of you to do that. Again, that should be up here as well. You can also go to unionaustin.com/give. We're excited to partner with you. We also have an old school donation if you need like a cash box in the back. We like that too, okay? So thank you in advance for your partnership. Now, as we celebrate what God's doing in our community, we also want to remember that we need God to move in our world. We like to spend time in liturgy as a collective body to pray together, to reflect both internally and personally as well as a church community. And we're praying the same prayer each week as we ask God to grow us in the fruit of the Spirit. That's the series that we're in. So collectively, we'd love to have you join us in prayer. I will be leading a couple of lines. Anything that is in bold, you will read, okay? You ready to get started? Yes? All right. Spirit of God, thank you that you are a gift giver. We ask that you would grow the fruit of the Spirit in our lives. Where there is discord, hatred, and complacency within us, flood our hearts with love, that we may love you as you loved. Where our world is filled with turmoil, help us to spread joy and peace. When others cross paths with us, may they not encounter short tempers or jadedness, but instead experience the patience and kindness of Christ inside us. In the midst of our adversity, build faithfulness and trust as we follow you. Grant us a gentle spirit to build up others, especially when we are tempted to tear down. And teach us to exercise self-control, that we would surrender our desires and be transformed. Amen. Thank you for joining that in prayer today. As we stated earlier, today is Father's Day. We do have a short video to honor and pray for all of our fathers. Check it out.
To the world, you're a dad. But to your family, you're the world. You're the hero who chases away monsters under the bed, the coach who believes in them when they doubt themselves, and the rock they cling to in life's storms. You, Dad, are irreplaceable. And today, on this Father's Day, we pause to honor you and to celebrate the profound impact you have on the lives you touch. Because here's the thing about being a dad. It's a sacred calling, a reflection of the very heart of God. With every word of encouragement, every sacrifice made, you are modeling what it means to love unconditionally, to serve selflessly, and to lead with grace and truth. You are shaping souls and leaving a legacy that will echo through generations. And the best part is, you are not doing this alone. You have a perfect Father who is right there with you every step of the way. He sees you, he knows you, and he is wildly proud of you. Not because you are perfect, but because you are his. To the world, you may be just another dad, but to your family, you're everything. Keep being that hero, Dad. Keep showing up. Keep loving well. And thank you for all that you do. Happy Father's Day.
Well, happy Father's Day again, and again, also to all of our dads, our father figures, our mentors. We see you and we honor you and we celebrate and pray for you today. We love you because of the incredible impact that you've had in our lives. And we hope that you really do feel God's love and God's pleasure over you. If we haven't met, my name is Jon. I'm the pastor here at Union, and as we go after God's heart, yes, for fatherhood and parenthood and what it looks like for us to be an extension of God's faithful, protective, and providing love, I just wanted to take a moment to really recognize, hey, this is a tough journey, isn't it? For all of us. For some of us, we have lost dads. For others of us, perhaps dad wasn't around. And so in the midst of all of those things, across the spectrum of our experiences, know that we're praying for you this day. As a father myself, I know that I'm far from perfect. I'm a young dad, got a couple of kids, and already I know that I've made some incredible mistakes. I hold regrets. I have seen moments pass me by that I failed to seize upon. Yet at the same time, I know that I don't want to be stuck in my old patterns. I don't want to stay where I'm at. So I need God to show up for me. And thank God that God is here, that I'm not alone, and thank God that we're not alone. God is a faithful shepherd who walks alongside of each of us. In John 10, 14 through 15, Jesus himself says this, I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. It's an amazing thing to know that we have this good shepherd, this good Father. But here's a critical question for all of us. Are we learning to be faithful sheep? And if we are, what kind of difference does that make over time? I mean, what can 13 years of following the shepherd do for you? I know it sounds like a big number, 13, but it's a key number that we're gonna focus on today because we're gonna see God use that number of years in the life of Joseph. You see, Joseph was 17 when he was sold into slavery by his brothers unjustly. And then he was 13 years later, when he became the second in command over all of Egypt. He went from being this brash teenager to being this wise father figure to so many. Obviously, a whole lot of life happened within that span of time. Now, I know for some of our middle schoolers, high schoolers out there, 13 years, it's huge. 13 years is the sum of your entire life. And yet for some of us who are adults, 13 years just sounds like a number. So let me reframe that question a little bit for all of us. If you are a student, 13 years, what would you like to see true about yourself? Maybe you are 13 day. When you're 26, what do you think your life would be about? What would people say, hey, that's a part of the legacy that person is building? And for those of us who are adults, I want to invite you to think back to 13 years ago. Where were you? What were you doing? What was your life marked by? Maybe you were married back then, but now you're single. Or maybe you were single and now you find yourself married. Maybe a lot of different circumstances changed with your job, with your family, with your friends. What happened over those 30 years or 13 years? Are you a drastically different person today, or would you say, I'm kind of the same, more or less? For me, if you ask the 27-year-old version, hey, what do you think 13 years can do for you? I don't know if 27-year-old me, 27-year-old Jon, would be able to get most of those things right, what has happened in life. For one thing, back then, I was only 2.5 years into my marriage. I didn't have any kids to call my own. Fatherhood felt like a pretty distant dream at that point. But still, if you look at some of my photo roll from the early 2010s, you would see, oh, you know what? Jon was kind of a dad in his own right, because I was a dog dad. Adopted, naturally. The first one, Squishy, on the left of that photo that you see was Gloria's dog. And I got to be Squishy's dog dad for the first time. And then we added Mocha on the other side a little bit later. Now, being a 20-something pet parent, that wasn't the only thing that was going on for me about 13 years ago. I was also really filled with a lot of hope and a lot of energy. And yet at the same time, I think looking back, I can say this with a lot of truthfulness to myself. I lacked self-awareness. I was naive. And when it came to things like life planning and big life goals, let's just say that I was very laissez-faire. I had no long-term vision for life. I just kind of went day by day, moment by moment. There was no fire that existed in my life. Now, fast forward 13 years to today, and I would say there is some sort of fire that drives me, because as a young parent, I want to see my kids learn to follow Jesus, to become world changers and world citizens. I want to see all of us get more of heaven inside of who we are, to become more like God, and to expand God's goodness in all of our lives. You see, something happened to me over these 13 years. And if you ask me, Jon, can you pinpoint the time? I can't actually tell you date, what happened exactly. But I can tell you this, something grabbed my attention. Something took hold of my imagination. It altered my trajectory. And I just wonder for you sitting here today, what do you think 13 years can do for you? Now, if we've missed you over the past year, over the past couple of weeks, I want to invite you just to come alongside of this journey that we've been on here at Union Church. Because we've been growing into a community that flourishes together, that seeks God's heart for all people. And a part of that is encapsulated within this series, Fruitful. We're asking God to grow us in spirit and in character, that we would be people who are filled with what the scriptures call the fruit of the Spirit. And if you're not familiar with the fruit of the Spirit, it comes from Galatians 5:22 and 23. And you're gonna see that on the screen above. You can also follow along in your own Bibles, but this is what the scriptures say. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things, there is no law. And today our focus is on the last fruit, self-control. We're gonna see how self-control plays a crucial role in your development and my development as fruitful people. Psychology today defines self-control in this way. Self-control, or the ability to manage one's impulses, emotions, and behaviors to achieve long-term goals, it's the very thing that separates humans from the rest of the animal kingdom. Self-control is primarily rooted in the prefrontal cortex, the planning, problem-solving, and decision-making center of the brain. And it's significantly larger in us humans than in other mammals. So with that definition in mind, how would you rate your own self-control today? How do you show up? Are we actually better than all the mammals out there? Do you manage your own impulses, your own emotions? Or sometimes, do our own impulses actually drive us? Do our emotions take hold in a way that spins us out of control? Are your behaviors today aligned with your long-term goals for tomorrow? We're gonna go back into the narrative arc of Joseph's story, and like we said earlier, when we first meet Joseph, he's this young 17-year-old kid. He receives these grand visions and dreams, but he lacks the self-control to know how to understand them, how to steward them, how to even share these dreams, and to go after them himself. Have you ever experienced that in your own life, or maybe you've seen it in the life of another person? They've got these huge aspirations, and yet they're a little bit green in life. They don't seem to have all the skills or the experience, let alone the self-control that would drive them forward. That was young Joseph. And yet 13 years later, this is what we know to be true about this Joseph. He becomes the second in command over the world's, at the time, largest and most powerful empire. So what changed? Well, we know a lot of things actually happened to Joseph, but I'm just not convinced that it's his circumstances alone that made the biggest difference. Because on paper, you see, Joseph's life kind of reads like this series of unfortunate events. He's sold into slavery at 17 by his brothers. But somehow he ends up the head of a household, of Potiphar's household. And you would think, wow, he kind of made it. And then everything goes south again, because he's falsely accused of attempted rape, unlawfully imprisoned, and his fortunes switch again as he's in prison. Because again, there's favor that happens upon him, and he becomes the head over all of the prison. He's an assistant to the guard. And somehow, through another twist of circumstances, he somehow gets removed from prison, meets the Pharaoh, the king, and then becomes the second in command, just like that. It all reads like a modern day K-drama to me. But it doesn't answer that question. Why does Joseph grow? Why does Joseph become who he actually becomes? And I think the why is found much deeper into Joseph's story. One of the things that God reminded me of as I was praying and preparing for our time together today was the serenity prayer. Many of you guys might be familiar with it, but if you don't, it's a prayer that is really something that drives the 12-step or recovery program. And by the way, if you're ever interested in recovery, if you want to work through some of your habits and your hang-ups, just use that QR code in front of you, the Connect QR code, find our groups, and sign up for Recovery 12 Steps. Tom Holdridge actually is a great individual, great leader, friend of mine, and he helps to lead that group. But the serenity prayer goes like this. It begins by saying, God, grant me the serenity, the peace to accept the things that I cannot change. Give me the courage to change the things that I can. And give me wisdom to know the difference. In many ways, I believe that those words encapsulate the why of Joseph's growth. It illustrates that we all need to grow in self-control, these ingredients of serenity and courage and wisdom. And notice that it's all driven through this dynamic relationship. It starts with God, acknowledging this higher power, this relationship that exists between us and the God who created us. So let's see how all of these crucial elements for self-control show up in Joseph's story. Genesis 37 opens by saying this, verse 2. This is the account of Jacob's family line. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And he brought their father a bad report about them. 17-year-old Joseph had no filter and no self-control. There's zero wisdom at this point, right? I mean, he's actually kind of a tattletale. He throws his brothers underneath the bus. He rags on them. And then verse 5, it gets worse. Joseph has this dream. And when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and it stood upright while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. His brother said to him, do you intend to reign over us, Joseph? Will you actually rule us? And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Joseph tells these stories and he steals the spotlight and he stirs up even more jealousy because he's already dad's favorite. He's got this coat of multicolors. And then he goes on and does this. All of it lands him in some hot water. And part of me wants to believe this is just siblings being siblings. They're just being kids in some ways. There's a rivalry that will always exist among siblings. And he's the youngest among all of his brothers. And so, I don't know, maybe he's jockeying for position just to be seen and heard. But in any case, it all backfires on him because he stokes the brothers' jealousy. Joseph, at this point, has yet to learn the serenity or the peace of knowing that he can't change some things. You are the youngest of the family, at least now. And that, my friends, is the starting place of self-control. You have to learn serenity to accept the things that we cannot change. And I believe that it's actually one of the toughest lessons in life for any one of us. Because here in America, we're taught the opposite, that everything is up for grabs. And if everything is up for grabs, then everything can be changed. But friends, that's just not the case. That is not reality. There are some things that we cannot change. Some things that exist outside of your control and outside of my control. Like Joseph, we love to dream big dreams. We have aspirations. There's nothing wrong with those things. It's beautiful. But it can also create a barrier for us to learn the fruit of self-control. If we can't accept this reality that there are some things that are just beyond us, then we're not on our way to becoming fruitful people. I think we're actually on the way to becoming more embittered. We're entitled brats. People who find ourselves as victims every single time, at every single turn. I don't know where I'd place Joseph in this spectrum, but I can tell you for sure there is no serenity at this point in his life. He's just running his mouth, he's having his way. It drives his brothers against him. So much so that one day they decide it's time to get rid of Joseph. We're just through with this guy. And one of them actually says, we got to kill him. Now, thankfully, one of his brothers intervenes and says, maybe that's not a great idea, guys. But the solution is not that much better. He says, let's just sell him off. And so this caravan of people happens upon them, and they sell their own brother into slavery. He ends up in Egypt, far away from home. And I know for some of us here today, we feel like we're in our own Egypt. We feel like the odds are stacked against us. We feel like we're far away from home. Nothing about our life, nothing about Joseph's life feels right or fair or good at this point. Sure, maybe Joseph was a bit arrogant. Maybe he could have changed a couple of ways that he showed up, but he didn't deserve being sold into slavery. But like it or not, Joseph was now a slave. Genesis 39:1 continues his story. Now Joseph had been taken to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, he buys him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. So imagine the scene. He's been sold to these Ishmaelites, and then he goes to a slave auction. Potiphar decides, hey, I'm going to take this one. And he comes under the rule of Potiphar. Throughout the story of Joseph, the scriptures don't really give much into the internal workings of what is happening with Joseph. I mean, did he replay these events over and over and over again, wishing that he said something, did something different? What was he feeling? How did he take in all of this? I have so many questions, and the truth is, many of them will probably go unanswered. But what we do know is this: he's sold into slavery, and one thing is made abundantly clear: God is still God, and God is still faithful. Verse 2, the Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. And I think right here, we pick up something very key about the character of God. It's a reminder that God is found even in the midst of our suffering, even when things feel like they are stacked against us. Even in the midst of great evil and suffering, God is still faithful. God never wishes any single one of us to suffer, and yet we still do. God doesn't condone slavery or wish that his brothers sell him into slavery, and yet it happens. Suffering is just suffering. It is evil. It is set against God's goodness. And yet God does not abandon any single one of us. God shows us through Joseph that God remains, that God still walks alongside of each of us. And it's God's faithfulness that begins to grow the fruit of the Spirit inside of Joseph. Joseph's time as a slave, as a servant, later on as a prisoner, they all shape him profoundly. And God uses his time of suffering under injustice to develop Joseph's character. Rather than seeing a Joseph who is griping and complaining all the time, Joseph begins to learn this serenity that we were talking about, that he cannot change everything. Fast forward 13 years later, we see a very different Joseph. He's no longer in prison. He's no longer in slavery, but in fact, he's actually the second in command, like we talked about. And one day, during an extreme famine that strikes the entire region, his brothers, the very same ones that sold him into slavery, show up in front of him. So we're gonna fast forward and jump into Genesis 42. When Jacob, Joseph's father, learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to all of his sons, Joseph's brothers, "Why do you just keep looking at each other?" He continued, "I've heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down there, buy some for us so that we may live and not die." Then 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt, but Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, the youngest at this point now, with the others, because he was afraid that harm might come to him. So Israel's sons were among those who went to buy grain, for there was famine in the land of Canaan also. Now Joseph was the governor of the land, the person who sold grain to all of its people. So when Joseph's brothers arrived, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. As soon as Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. "Where do you come from?" he asked. "Where do you come from?" When Joseph first sees them, I think it's safe to say that he feels something, right? He even speaks harshly to his brothers. Maybe there's this sudden surge of anger, rage that starts to show up. But here's the key: he doesn't allow those emotions to overtake him. There's this incredible display of self-control. I mean, he could have lashed out. At that point, he could have called out his brothers for all that they did and everything that he got to experience over the past 13 years. What's more, he could have boasted about that dream. You remember the dream of the sheaves? All the sheaves bowing down to him? But he doesn't do any of it. Instead, he shows up with the second ingredient of self-control. He shows up with the courage to change the things that he can. Joseph decides to focus on something beyond just justice. You see, justice is a wrong being made right. And it's really, really, really hard for a wrong to be made right, especially after 13 years. There's no way Joseph is gonna get those years back. There's no way Joseph will ever be paid back for the time that he wasted away in prison. So Joseph decides to pursue something more, something beyond justice. he decides to pursue reconciliation with his brothers. And I love this part because sometimes when we hear about reconciliation, we think, oh, all things flowery and put together and it feels good and right and everybody's at the right place in the same place. But this is not true of the kind of reconciliation that the Bible speaks to. The reconciliation that we see in the scriptures here, it's earthy, it's costly. There's this tension that you can feel. It's tethered to all these internal wrestlings that we all hold sometimes, our pain, our discomfort, our doubts, and yet also our hope for something else, something different. Joseph, here in this moment, shows up with a lot of courage, and Joseph also refuses to be a doormat. And I think there's something really healthy about that. It's really refreshing. Joseph pursues reconciliation in a way that I think really honors his own experiences and also the way things were left with his brothers. Listen to how he interacts with his brothers. We're not going to be able to read all of it, but we're going to pick it up again in verse 14 of that same chapter. Joseph says to them, "It's just as I told you, you are spies, and this is how you will be tested. As surely as Pharaoh lives, you will not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of your number to get your brother. The rest of you will be kept in prison so that your words may be tested to see if you are telling the truth. If you're not, then as surely as Pharaoh lives, you are spies." Joseph, at this point, doesn't give his brothers a pass. In fact, he accuses them of being these spies who are invading the land. And he puts them into custody for a few days. But ultimately, here's his heart. He wants to test them. And this takes incredible courage for someone like Joseph. It's not something that his brothers even deserve at this point. But he's giving them grace. He's saying, I don't know what you have become over the years. I don't know how you're going to respond. And so he tests the waters to get a better sense of what his brothers think, what is actually inside of their hearts these days. They sold him into slavery back then. What will they do now when it comes to their own relationships and their youngest brother, this Benjamin? And this leads us to the third part of the serenity prayer. He has wisdom to know the difference. There's an incredible wisdom that we're going to see Joseph living out here. Something that I think he learned, honestly, after he was tossed out by his brothers so many years ago. Something that he had to learn again when under Potiphar's household, he was tossed into prison. Joseph has experienced letdown after letdown after letdown. And as he approaches and experiences his brothers for the first time in so many years, he leaves the room for this reconciliation to happen. But there's also this room for perhaps a letdown. I'm not going to put all my eggs in the same basket. Why? Because one, he knows that reconciliation is God's heart. It's perhaps the greatest thing that could happen, but he knows that it may not be possible at this point. And this exercise shows us the last ingredient of self-control, this wisdom that Joseph begins to experience. Genesis 42:21 and Genesis 43:8 begin to prove out Joseph's wisdom, because his brothers start to show up. There's remorse that's expressed. Genesis 42:21, they said to one another, "Surely we're being punished because of our brother Joseph. We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us for his life, but we would not listen. That's why this distress has come on us." There's hand-wringing between all of these brothers. And then Genesis 43:8, then Judah, the same Judah who actually said, "Hey, let's sell Joseph into slavery," Judah says to Israel, his father, "Send the boy Benjamin along with me, and we'll go at once, so that we and you and our children may live and not die. I myself," this is where he exhibits growth, "I myself will guarantee his safety. You can hold me personally responsible for him. If I do not bring him back and set him before you, I will bear the blame before you all of my life." This is the very thing that Judah didn't have when he sold Joseph into slavery. His brothers begin to show Joseph there's been change in our lives. They start to tell the truth. They express remorse. And when it comes to the brother that Joseph never met, they demonstrate a protective heart, a responsibility that was not there. After seeing all of this, Joseph finally says, I'm going to reveal myself to them. Genesis 45:1. Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, have everyone leave my presence. And so there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still living? But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. They're quaking in their own boots. Then Joseph said to his brothers, come close to me. They touched him, and when they had done so, he said, I am your brother Joseph, the one that you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. Joseph doesn't batter them with guilt, but with grace and with mercy, he offers forgiveness. He extends an olive branch. He makes a way for reconciliation. There's serenity, there's courage, there's wisdom, all of these key ingredients of self-control. And it all shows up after 13 years of God being faithful. So friends, what can 13 years do for you? This is what happens after God shows up over and over and over again in Joseph's life. He learns the fruit of self-control. This is a man who has seen and known God's faithfulness in his life, even when life itself felt like it had turned against him. How is God wanting to develop self-control in you today? I know it's been a few years, but how many of you remember when Hamilton first came out, the musical? Yeah? It's a while back. It's amazing. It was hailed as a game changer to the Broadway musical scene. Why? Because Lin-Manuel Miranda actually brought something that we had never seen before. He brought the story of America in a way that wasn't often highlighted. It was a story of immigrants, told by immigrants, performed by immigrants, and it set the Broadway scene ablaze. Because not only was it the first time that we had seen people of color taking center stage, but it was all done with excellence. In Hamilton, there's this one song that's called My Shot. In it, the main character, I hope I'm not giving too much away, but Hamilton, one of the founding fathers of America, sings about this one shot, about he doesn't want to allow this one shot to slip him by, this one chance, this one opportunity, because he's an orphan and someone who has had life turn against him. Circumstances and foundations that didn't just line up the way that he wanted them. In many ways, his story is like Joseph's. There's tragedy, there's brokenness. It might even reflect some of your own experiences. And yet, opportunity still comes knocking. And for us as Christ followers, this opportunity comes in the form of God's faithfulness, to be healed and to be restored as people, despite all of the pain and the chaos that we've experienced. To be redeemed far enough in our journey so that we can bring more of God's hope and healing into our world, to extend God's kingdom to everyone, everywhere. So I just wonder, what will you do when your shot comes? Because God is always faithful in the midst of our circumstances. And the answer for you and for me, it usually doesn't come down to a singular moment, but it comes through years and moments that have been collected with God, our shepherd, as we have learned to follow him as sheep. And if you follow God through it all, God's faithfulness will never abandon you. You know, it's not lost on me that on Father's Day, we're talking about self-control. Some of us dads, we're not great at self-control, are we? Some of us, we didn't have dads because they lacked self-control. What would it look like for all of us to allow God the Father to shepherd us where we are? And for the dads who are out there, the father figures, the mentors, what would it look like for you to grow in the fruit of self-control, to know serenity deep in your bones, to have courage to go after the things that you can change, to have wisdom to know the difference? I know for some of us, life has been tough. The job market hasn't been kind. God is still here for us. We also know that we live in a very difficult time today. We're in need, not just of father figures, but of real leaders to step up and to say, God, would you lead us forward? Right? We're very much aware. We've seen the anti-ICE protests, the No Kings demonstrations of this past weekend, the humanitarian crises that continue to persist. I think of Sudan, Gaza, so many different places in our world where chaos reigns. Our economy seems like it's on the edge. And here's the thing, God doesn't stand apart from any single one of those circumstances. In fact, I believe that God shows up in the midst of that chaos, sometimes through people like you and you and you. When you choose to exercise your serenity and your courage and your wisdom. So how is God's Spirit shaping you today to develop the fruit of self-control? How has he been kind to you? And have you taken a moment to thank God, even in the midst of all the crap? How is God shaping your spirit? Maybe it is in self-control, but there's other fruit of the Spirit: love, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness. How is God growing you? And what can maybe 13 years do for you? Or maybe that number is way too big. Maybe you can't imagine 13 years. What can 13 months do if you just choose to place yourself under the loving faithfulness of God? What can 13 days do? 13 minutes? We gotta start somewhere, especially if it's a low point in life. And God's faithfulness is here for you today. Let God shape you. Let God lead you. I wanna invite us just to look at this serenity prayer one more time. And if you want to say it out loud, you can say it out loud together with me. If you want to utter these words in your own spirit, in your own heart. But let's join together, and as we close out our time, let's pray that God would develop us in self-control. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. God, would you show up as only you can? We thank you for your faithfulness, and we ask that as we just respond as your sheep, that you would care for us, that you would love us, that you would meet us here, and that you would grow us in the fruit of self-control. We pray all this in your Son's name. Amen. Will you join me in responding to God through song?
Through generations.